In Venezuela, 312 military units welcome members of the Bolivarian National Militia for a training day in defense of the country as part of Operation Independence 200. In Nicaragua, authorities have confirmed that coup leader Estrada Ruiz is in good condition after false accusations raised by the U.S. State Department. And in Palestine, Israeli occupation forces killed more than 40 civilians in the last 24 hours. Hello, welcome from the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. In response to the call made by Venezuelan head of state Nicolás Maduro on Saturday, the Bolivarian nation has entered a new phase of preparation within the framework of Operation Independence 200. Starting at 9 a.m. local time, military units and bases across the country previously designated for this operation are receiving the Bolivarian National Militia to begin the advanced phase of training in defense of the territory. The head of state has met with the high-ranking of political and military leaders to assess the outcomes of the mobilizations and operations initiated since the early morning of September 11th, which he characterized as promising. There are 284 active fronts in the region aimed at safeguarding the Atlantic Caribbean coast and achieving key objectives among other pressing concerns. It was highlighted by the head of state during his meeting with the youth.
We have a beautiful day ahead of us from 9 in the morning until 6 in the evening. All Venezuelans, men and women, who have enlisted and are reserve soldiers or members of the Bolivarian National Militia, should go to the camps and military units of the country, the people to their barracks, the people to their military units to receive training in strategic theory, tactics, and to learn how to use the shooting ranges to defend the homeland. All the people to the barracks on Saturday, September 13th.
And the Bolivarian leader has recognized the commitment and success of the civilian, police and military mobilizations that have taken place in the country.
Thursday was a resounding and total success for Operation Independence 200. To defend more than 284 vital points in the country. And the armed forces were there, with all its four components. The National Militia, and all the weapons the Republic has to defend itself, rifles, tanks, and missiles mobilized throughout the country to defend our right to peace. We don't mess with anyone, we don't threaten anyone, but those who mess with Venezuela will find out. Peace, peace, peace. That is the slogan. And those who want peace must be prepared to defend it, to guarantee it.
And Venezuelan Minister of Interior, Justice and Peace, Diosdado Cabello, said that whomever were to try entering Venezuela to harm the country will be facing 100 years of war.
They should be ready for a 100-year war. If they were to set foot here in Venezuela, and they should know that after 100 years, the Bolivarians would come out victorious, the homeland would prevail. They must be very clear that anyone who may try to attack our country is inviting a 100-year war, 100 years, and we will be relentless in defending our homeland.
During a new phase of militia training, enlisted civilians have expressed their willingness to defend the Venezuelan people by implementing a peace plan.
We want peace and tranquility for Venezuelans. We are here to work, to build, to study, and make economic progress also in health and education. Here we are focused on studying, working, and building our country. We are not focused on war. We are focused on making our country grow, making headway step by step.
And on Saturday, Venezuelan Foreign Minister Ivan Hill denounced an attack of the U.S. destroyer against a Venezuelan fishing boat. The foreign minister condemned the boarding of the fishing vessel by 18 armed U.S. soldiers who occupied the vessel. Ivan Hill added that the incident occurred in Venezuelan exclusive economic waters. In the sense, the foreign ministry expressed its strong rejection of the U.S. destabilizing action, saying that the U.S. seeks to create a scenario to justify its military escalation in the Caribbean. Venezuela demands an immediate end to the U.S. aggressions while reaffirming the country's commitment to peace and the defense of its sovereignty.
Denuncia ante la comunidad nacional e internacional.
I denounce before the international court an incident that has been promoted by the elite that surrounds the power of Washington.
De la élite que rodea el poder en Washington, en los Estados Unidos.
United States. Yesterday,
De pesca,
a Venezuelan tuna fishing boat,
Carmen Rosa,
the Carmen Rosa, which we see here,
palangrera, que hace
a long-line vessel,
Caribe venezolano,
which operates in the Venezuelan Caribbean Sea, authorized by our Ministry of Fisheries,
pescadores a bordo, fue
with 9 fishermen,
hostil,
9 humble fishermen on board, was hostilely boarded by 1 unit of the United States Navy, 1 military vessel, a frigate, or a missile destroyer, which we see here, the missile destroyer Jason Dunham,
este que vemos acá, el destructor misilístico Jason Dunham.
And Venezuelan Foreign Minister Ivan Hill showed images proving that the vessel was assaulted by the United States while it was in the country's exclusive economic zone.
La Nacional Bolivariana.
the Bolivarian National Armed Forces.
Estuvo todo el tiempo monitoreando la situación.
The Bolivarian Navy of Venezuela was monitoring the situation the entire time. Here we see the images taken by this humble fisherman of this warship, this missile destroyer that has been in waters under Venezuelan jurisdiction. We are talking about all of this happening in the exclusive economic zone of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela.
Bolivariana de Venezuela.
We have a short break coming up. First, remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you'll find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back. Nicaraguan authorities have confirmed that coup leader Estrada Ruiz is in good health condition after false accusations raised by the U.S. State Department. On Friday, the detainee was shown on national television at the prison where he is serving his sentence. He was in good physical condition and health. Local authorities say that every detainee undergoes a series of medical exams to make sure they be in good health. They say the Nicaraguan detention system respects the human rights of prisoners in keeping with the country's constitution. Haiti, dozens of people were killed in a fishing village north of the capital in the latest massacre carried out by the country's criminal groups. According to Joseph Louis Baptiste, a local government official, at least 42 people were killed in La Poterie, including a 4-year-old child and his family. Baptiste also said that the killings began over the weekend and are still ongoing, noting that the criminal groups set fire to La Poterie and are now attempting to attack the nearby town of Arcai, while the police are trying to stop them. The massacre was apparently triggered by the killing of a criminal leader known as Vladimir, a member of a coalition of criminal groups called Vif and Sam, which has looted several communities in Port-au-Prince and other areas. A new study shows that although a sizable conservative minority is angry, the majority of the Brazilian population supports the guilty verdict issued against former President Bolsonaro this week. A correspondent Brian Mir has more.
Across Across the country, Brazilians are applauding the Supreme Court's conviction of Jair Bolsonaro and 7 of his accomplices for crimes that include a failed attempt to enact a military coup, which would have effectively ended the period of democracy that began with the fall of the U.S. dictatorship in 1985.
The ruling makes us happy, not because of hatred or a thirst for revenge, but because it represents a defense of Brazil's democracy. Those who lived through the military dictatorship and saw the torture and killings of those who tried to resist it understand what I am talking about.
After the guilty verdicts were announced, many people commemorated the fact that 5 high-ranking members of the armed forces have been convicted. This is the first time since the first military coup in 1891 that a member of the Brazilian armed forces has ever been convicted for involvement in a coup.
We believe that it's a fair verdict, because they attempted a coup d'état, and beyond that, it represents a historical rectification for great injustice that has happened in Brazil, including all of the people who were murdered, fighting against the military coup of 1964, and the dictatorship that followed. It's symbolically important to now have army generals convicted of a coup attempt.
Although a sizable minority of Brazilian conservatives seem furious with ex-President Bolsonaro's 27-year prison sentence, a study by the Eurasia Group shows that the majority of the population supports the verdict.
They need to lock Bolsonaro up and throw the key in the river because that man is good for nothing. He told poor people to eat grass. He didn't help the people in any way. He didn't keep any of his promises. So I want to see him rot in there.
According to Brazil's legal protocols, ex-President Bolsonaro and his cronies are expected to be arrested sometime within the next 60 days. Brian Mir, teleSUR, Recife.
Albanian Prime Minister Edi Rama introduced the new anti-corruption minister Diala, an artificial intelligence-generated bot. The European country is the first in the world to incorporate a non-physical person into its cabinet. According to Rama, Diala is personified as an adult woman and it was created with the aim of promoting a country with public tenders free of corruption. The minister has been working in the government since January, where she started as a digital assistant, helping citizens use the e-Albania platform for government services. Experts say her contribution to the political sphere could lead to transparency in public administration, which is key to Albania's application to become a full member of the European Union in 2030. The government of Nepal lifted the national curfew imposed due to social unrest after appointing Sushila Karki as the country's interim prime minister. On Friday, Karki was appointed as a member of the executive. The event took place with a special ceremony at the Shital Niwas presidential building, administered by President Ramchandra Paudel. The decision to position the former Supreme Court Chief Justice responds to the demand of the representatives of social movement called Generation Z, who pressed for a parliamentary dissolution. In this regard, the new minister is leading a government in charge of holding new legislative elections within 6 months. We now have our second break coming up. Before we invite you to visit our Facebook page at teleSUR English, there you'll be able to watch our top stories, special live coverage, and much more. Follow our page and activate the notification button to stay updated on the world's most recent events. The final break, don't go away. Welcome back. In Palestine, the Israeli army killed more than 40 civilians in the last 24 hours. Health authorities reported that due to the new death toll, the number of Palestinians killed since the beginning of the Israeli conflict rose to more than 64,800 and at least 164,260 wounded. They also indicate that the number of deaths due to starvation and malnutrition increased to 420, including 145 children. Authorities warn that the figures may change since rescue services have not yet been able to reach the victims trapped under the rubble. The Arab League welcomed the decision of the United Nations to endorse the two-state solution for the end of the Israeli genocide against Palestine. The Arab Parliament informed that the initiative was approved by 142 countries, rejected by 10, and 10 countries abstained. In turn, expressed that the countries that did not vote in favor of the resolution are on the wrong side of history. The Arab Parliament highlighted the draft as an important step that reflects the firm international position of support for the legitimate rights of the Palestinian people, in addition to achieving a just and true peace that puts an end to the Israeli conflict in the Palestinian enclave. The United Nations condemned the death of 145 children killed by the famine crisis in the Gaza Strip due to the blockade imposed by the Israeli government. The international organization denounced the situation of hundreds of babies, children, and elderly people after the shortage of basic food supplements. Moreover, Palestinian medical sources warn that dozens of mothers are suffering from malnutrition, preventing them from breastfeeding their newborns, while nearly 1.6 million Gazans are facing a situation of malnutrition in an extreme food situation. For its part, the Zionist army continues with the blockades of supplies that tried to enter the territory as part of a strategy of extermination against the Palestinian population. Likewise, the United Nations Children's Organization, UNICEF, denounced that more than 450,000 children are under siege by the Israeli army as they have no safe place to move to. The organization stresses that this imminent catastrophe of occupation is expanding more and more, leaving dozens of civilians without shelter, homes, schools, or vital services such as water. The UN calls for safe evacuation for babies born prematurely, injured or disabled children, and recalls international law requiring the protection of children and the services they depend on. And on Saturday, the international Sumud flotilla was finally ready to set sail from Tunisia for the Gaza Strip. After waiting for almost a week, flotilla leader Carlos Bertola said the entire fleet was finally lined up. Bertola said that due to Israeli attacks on the fleet in previous days, Tunisia's army and police were protecting them with signal inhibitors to prevent further Israeli interference. Still, the flotilla crew is aware that there is a big chance of being intercepted by Israeli occupation forces, as it has been the case in previous instances. And in Yemen on Saturday, the army announced that they had attacked various Israeli targets with hypersonic ballistic missiles. In a statement, the Yemeni forces said the targets had been successfully hit, causing millions of Israelis to seek shelters. The Yemeni army warns that they will continue operations in defense of the country to confront the aggression and in support of the Palestinian people until the Israeli siege of Gaza ends. Those Yemeni authorities reiterated their position and said the Israeli aggression would only spur them to great determination and perseverance. German citizens protested against the country's involvement in the Middle East and Ukrainian conflicts. Some 20,000 people mobilized in the streets of Berlin in rejection of the government's actions. The demonstrators chanted slogans such as "Stop the genocide in the Gaza Strip," "No weapons in the war zone," or "Peace instead of an arms race." They also warned that the demonstration is only the beginning of actions against the German government war policy, large-scale armamentation and militarization. And on Saturday in the United Kingdom, social organizations and activists staged a counter-march in London on the slogan "March Against Fascism." Hundreds of protesters condemned hate speech and racism with banners and slogans. Protesters say their aim is to prevent the right wing from dominating public debate and turning London into a stage for hate, where immigration and freedom of expression cause social divisions and minorities are attacked. Meanwhile, the right says that they stand to defend national identity and freedom of speech. And a powerful 7.4 magnitude earthquake struck off the east coast of Russia's Kamchatka Peninsula on September 12, 2025, with its epicenter located about 111 kilometers east of Petropavlovsk-Kamchatsky at a depth of 39.5 kilometers. The quake caused some alarm among residents, but so far there have been no reports of severe damage or casualties. The Pacific Tsunami Warning Center issued a warning for hazardous tsunami waves up to 1 meter, potentially affecting nearby Russian coastlines. However, the warning was later lifted. This earthquake is the largest aftershock to date, following a massive magnitude 8.8 earthquake that struck the region in late July 2025, which had previously triggered Pacific-wide tsunami alerts. And the Ministry of Defense of Russia reported the progress of the joint strategic exercises with the armed forces of Belarus, Zapad 2025. In the joint exercises, the Russian Northern Fleet in action said that missiles were used in the combat trials in the waters of the Northern Sea Route. It also reported that a naval helicopter was deployed to carry out aerial reconnaissance. Moreover, the simulation of the enemy's location was specified and the data was transmitted to the ship. And Russian President Vladimir Putin says Moscow has become the second largest urban economy in the world. The Russian leader said Moscow is considered one of the best cities in the world due to the wide choice of priorities made by the city's authorities. Putin stressed that the implementation of new technologies has quadrupled over the last 6 years in Moscow. Putin says the capital has become a strong rearguard for the Russian army, with over 500 companies producing important supplies for the front. Like this, we have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. So join us on social media: Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.